Cell down, so we will go ahead and get started. Welcome to those who made the this current Dr. NAACLS for October 2022. Of course, we're going to timestamp this as I see the names. Many of you have attended these before, so thank you for attending again. But for those who are new, we timestamp this because we post this on our blog through YouTube to watch at a later time. And as most of you know, our compliance requirements can change up to twice a year. So while the topic of this Dr. NAACLS is more process about the benefits of becoming a volunteer, when we do the Q&A at the end, we still may talk about specific standard compliances. So I'm just encouraging you that if you are watching this at a later date, and you want to confirm that those compliances that we do discuss remain the same, please contact staff or visit the program director's page on naacls.org, where we have the most up-to-date standards and standards compliance guide and other documents. Today, we are joined with Dr. Elizabeth Gockel-Blessing, who is an MLS educator on RCAP, as well as Michelle Gianosa, who is program accreditation coordinator. If you have an MLS program, no doubt you've probably talked to Michelle quite a bit. My name is Mark Spence, and I work with phlebotomy, medical laboratory assistant, and the DCLS programs. So today we're talking about volunteer opportunities, but we're going to hone down on two specific opportunities we want to promote and hopefully encourage you to take part in. The first of all is mentorship, and specifically mentorship for program directors. Over the last 5 years, NAACLS has seen quite a bit of program director turnover, as well as new educators and program directors entering the profession of being a NAACLS approved program director. So when you do get approved as a program director, you are assigned a VIP mentor. Now, these mentors are generally experienced program directors and hopefully even individuals with review backgrounds. So since we have a smaller volunteer pool for those people, and we are seeing quite a bit more program director turnover, I would like to encourage you, if you are an experienced program director and you would like to impart some of your knowledge and your wisdom and your experience to younger program directors in this next generation that we are seeing come through, to sign up to be a VIP mentor. If you scan this QR code, you'll get taken directly to the sign up form. If you're frantically trying to fumble for your phone while listening to me, don't worry about it. At the end of this presentation, I'll show you on the website where you can sign up for this position, as well as becoming a self-study reviewer or site visitor. So we want to talk specifically about the self-study reviewer because really the role of the self-study reviewer can't be overstated. They set the tone for the rest of the review. They are the first line to really get their hands on the self-study and determine what items are compliant or what items are still a little bit of a concern and should be followed up on the site visit. So let's talk about some of the benefits of becoming a self-study reviewers. As I said, they are this initial front line of the review process, and they're the ones that really get to kind of focus the second part of the review, where the site visitors can not only focus on the site-specific items they're required to, but also the hopefully limited items that are concerns from the self-study. But beyond the benefit of the review itself, there are numerous benefits to the person who serves as the self-study reviewer. First of this being reflection. So Elizabeth, do you have specific examples of how working on a self-study has provided an opportunity for you to reflect on your position as an educator and a program director, and also kind of a wider view of your program itself?
Yes, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm very pleased to be here. Yes, I totally believe that when you do the self-study, you have the opportunity to do several things. Number one, you get ready, you get used to the accreditation process. That's a reflective process when you go to do it yourself. Number two, you understand how the forms work, and while it may not be reflective, you can certainly reflect later on how you've done doing the forms, and it gives you some background. The process of doing a self-study takes about 6 weeks. And because of that, I see that as kind of an incubation time where you can reflect not only on what you are reviewing for an additional program, but also what you're doing in your own program.
Thank you. The process of reviewing the self-study gives you a different perspective as you as you alluded to, Elizabeth, like as you look at the self-study, which serves as a story, a program story, and working through the self-study and identifying strengths and weaknesses, it often will bring strengths and weaknesses of your own program. Can you remember reviewing a self-study, finding something that a program did either as a weakness and identifying that weakness in your program, or vice versa with a strength?
Yes, I do remember one with a strength. I reviewed a program and I really liked how they were able to pull out the pre-analytical, analytical, and analytical components of each course. And although I think our program did that, we didn't do a very good job of showing it in the document. So after I saw how that was done, I took it back to our program and we made some adjustments to ours, and it made it a lot easier for the people who reviewed our study.
So it's almost like an unintended collaboration. It's almost like that original party doesn't quite know that the benefit they're paying forward to the reviewer.
That is correct.
You referred to this before, but I think, it can't be overstated that you do get this inside look at the process itself. I'm not sure that, to use the duck analogy, while hopefully NAACLS looks very calm and steady at the top, I'm not sure that program directors outside the process know about the frantic paddling going underneath just to make sure that everything stays above water. What were some lessons you took when you first started doing the review process, and maybe even as committee member, that kind of helped you prepare, maybe not only for a self-study, but as a program director outside of a review process?
That is a fantastic question. I would say it does a couple things. Number
Mhm.
one, it certainly helped. It helped not only the program that I'm reviewing, but also on my own program, about the quality in all of these programs, Doug, ensuring the quality. We are working with programs when we do these self-studies to take a look at what we think is going to be the next generations of practitioners, and they're going to be required and responsible for our lab work one day. So we can definitely use this insider knowledge to help programs meet the standards. And if they don't, to give them some feedback on what they need to do to improve.
Right. So skill development. Can you talk a little bit about the skills that have kind of been honed through the process that you've some of your skills have been honed by reviewing self-studies?
Yes. Oh my. Well, as medical laboratory scientists, I think one of our skills has always been attention to detail, and that's attention to detail in the lab. Sometimes I don't know that I know myself. I wish I was better attentive to detail on other things, and being a self-study reviewer helped me do that as I worked with the program as the program director. Other skills I felt were really important were organizational skills for me as a reviewer, and also for the self-study document and in providing feedback to the programs if needed. It is definitely a way of creating responsibility for the self-study reviewer themselves, because you will have X amount of time to do a self-study review. And we expect, of course, with guidance, that you will devote the time and attention that it needs. So that would lead me into the next thing, which is time management skills. So it's time management because you're working on your own program as well as assessing that of another peer program. The last thing that I really believe in, and I say this a lot in my classes, is that reading improves writing and writing improves reading. So we sharpen those communication skills in both reading and writing.
Great, those are a great list of examples, but I do want to point out one that you mentioned, and this is probably because NAACLS is right now going through our own review process with CHIA. And I have to imagine that just being able to work with, especially this, and becoming more familiar with the self-study template and things of that nature makes it a lot easier to navigate it once you have to approach that same document as a program director to fill out this document.
Yes, indeed.
And also, you mentioned on this a little bit before, but the opportunity to give back to the profession. The idea that you are a volunteer, you are given the opportunity to give back to the profession, and whether it's a self-study reviewer or a committee member.
That is correct. I mean, I have great, I guess, I don't even know what the right word is. I'm so honored to be part of NAACLS in this role and to actually know that I'm helping programs, wherever they need it, and I'm praising them for all the good things that they do. So the giving back to me is probably one of the most important reasons I'm a self-study reviewer and on the RCAP committee, and even do some site visits as well.
I do want to comment on a word you just said there, is praising. And what I appreciate, I have the opportunity to go to a lot of meetings with other accreditors and see how a lot of other accreditation agencies work. And what I always appreciate about whether it's been whatever CEO I've worked with, whatever board I've worked with, or committee I worked with, while unfortunately accreditors on some level have to be punitive to make sure standards are being met, there is an overwhelming effort to, instead of focus on being an accreditor that shifts to a punitive action right away, a real effort to focus on the NAACLS mission, which is to improve the quality of education and hopefully lift up at every opportunity by praising, by pointing out concerns we have, and hopefully communicating in efficient ways how to alleviate these concerns to be compliant, because that is ultimately, I think, the wish of all committee members and the board, that programs are compliant in every aspect.
That is true. And I see this as another way to be an educator, educating other educators on the whole process, as well as the whole experience and how it will definitely affect moving forward in their own programs.
So a few tiny things at the end, some bits and bobs, if you will. New self-study reviewers, if you have the interest in doing this, please feel free to contact anybody on staff. We can give you more information about it, but you are not just left out on an island and expected to navigate this process all by yourself. We do assign you a mentor who has been through the process, who can assist you with the documents, the timelines, kind of discussing the expectations of compliance, the specificity, the attention to detail that Elizabeth mentioned before. If you are a new volunteer and you're interested in becoming a site visitor, we require that you perform a self-study review before we assign you to a site visit. The reason we do this is we really feel like the best way to start you on that path to really understanding the expectations of compliance from reviewers is to start you with a self-study. You really get to that level of detail by reading and writing, and then understanding kind of how the whole NAACLS process works from the reviewer side. You will start understanding that better with the actual self-study review. So that's why we do require that you perform that at least one review before we move you to the site visit eligible pool. This was a point that Michelle reminded me of earlier. So Michelle, do you want to cover this next one about who can be a self-study reviewer?
Oh, sure. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a program director. You can be a faculty member, a clinical laboratory profession, physician, or dean. Anyone that meets our qualifications that we have listed on our website, but that's specifically associated with one of our one of our disciplines. There is a few different requirements, but yes, you don't have to be a program director. So we encourage you to, if you have, we have a lot of recently adjunct instructors that have been reaching out because they are, they're teaching courses, but they want to get more involved too. So as long as you're associated with some type of NAACLS accredited program, we're not limiting to just being a program director. It's open to anyone as long as you meet our qualifications.
Yeah, and I will show you where those qualifications are in a second. I think this is a good point. I think we mostly have program directors on this call right now, but if you do have faculty that you think it would be beneficial them to, in their role as faculty, to become more familiar with the NAACLS process and the expectations as a professional development, we obviously encourage those individuals to volunteer to be a reviewer.
And
So
we have also been seeing that a lot of current program directors are considering retirement. So if you have someone that is, you're thinking down the line already, have them volunteering for us now to get their shoes wet. So that when they are going through the process to become program director, they have the experience and the knowledge that they need for part of being approved as program director too.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, so now I'm going to take you to our website so I can show you where to find the places to set up, find where the requirements are that Michelle talked about. So on our homepage, go to the volunteers tab. The very top one is sign up. So you will see here you have two options to sign up. If you are a new volunteer, so this would be somebody, if you're interested, you haven't done any reviewing before, you would like to be a self-study reviewer, you would eventually want to be in the site visit pool, this is where you sign up right here, the first one. The second one is if you would wish to become a volunteer. So that is the program director, sorry, let me back up, the mentor. That's the program director mentor that I mentioned before. I think Michelle and Elizabeth and I have all mentioned that we also have mentors for the first time you do a self-study reviewer. That's where you sign up for this as well. So these are people who've already had the opportunity to do some self-studies and site visits. They would then be eligible for this other pool of volunteerism. If you're wondering about the requirements, which Michelle kind of discussed before, all of these have the specific requirements we're looking for in these positions. Before we go to Q&A, I do want to quickly mention one other volunteer opportunity. This is about the time of the year we start looking for nominations for our review committees. We will probably release the actual roles we are looking for in the next month on the NAACLS news, so keep an eye on it out for that. But one thing I do want to encourage everybody is that feel free to self-nominate. My experience working with scientists is that you are way too humble. Please feel free, if you've done some self-study reviews and site visits and you have interest in this, don't hope that somebody's going to nominate you. We welcome all self-nominations. It does not reflect poorly on you. We appreciate that kind of initiative. So, if being a committee member is something that is of interest to you, I can tell you as the staff person that sits in on the nominations calls, participation in self-studies and site visits goes a long way to helping those choices. So if you've been nominated in the past and you did not make it, please feel free to nominate again. We are blessed with a lot of qualified individuals that want to serve in these roles. And unfortunately, we are put in a position where we can't accept everybody their first time around or second or even third time around. So if you've done it in the past and you still have the interest, seriously, just go ahead and do that self-nomination again. Those positions and what we're seeking nominations for will be out in November. So before we get to Q&A, let's do a quick overview of DLPs. As soon as I remember how to work PowerPoint. So DLPs are discipline lead persons. These are individuals that are currently serving on our review committees that are available for standard interpretation. So if you have a question about your standard 2C, about your assessment process or some curriculum standards, these are the people you want to speak to or email. As you will see, these are all broken down by discipline specific. This information is on the program directors page of our website. If you have more of a question about process, when's our self-study due, when is our next annual accreditation fee due, things of that nature, those are more questions for staff. If you aren't sure who the question goes to, I would encourage you just to contact staff first. We are paid, so we can take that question first and then direct you. The people you see on the screen are generous enough to be donating their time as volunteers, as Elizabeth is, and as I see a few people on this call are. So for those of you on the call that are volunteers or maybe watch this later, thank you again for volunteering for NAACLS. So with that, we'll move to the Q&A. If anybody has a question, go ahead and type it in the Q&A box or raise your hand, and I can call on you. While I wait to see if there's any questions, I want to plug the next Dr. NAACLS, which we're still narrowing down the time, but it's hopefully all of them are important. But the next one is the Board of Directors update. So we're releasing all of the decisions made by the Board of Directors. So those are always important to keep up to date with what policy changes, potential standard changes were made by the board in September. So we, at the end of this month, probably the last week of November, right after Thanksgiving, we'll be having the next Dr. NAACLS. Hopefully we'll have more information on that in the news next week during workshop week. So I'm not seeing any questions. I'll give it a few more seconds. No, doesn't look like we have anything. Well, if you do have any questions moving forward, as soon as this is done, feel free to contact staff. Thank you for joining on, Elizabeth, during your vacation. Even more of an example of the commitment of a volunteer. And for everybody else, we will talk to you next month, probably after Thanksgiving. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you.